Hello, Tina Wright here again for my Week 4 presentation, A Shift in Public Administration, Theory and Practice. We are now in the public administration era post-World War II and Hoover Commission. We're starting to see changes in society and the way government is involved in decisions. And we're starting to look to move away from that science of management and administration and more towards a public responsibility and narrowing of focus on the inputs and outcomes in order to best serve the public. The first of the theorists that we discussed this week, Dwight Waldo, in his Administrative State, a Conclusion. It's a very narrow text, but what I got out of this was that he is not a fan of Wilson's dichotomy, the separation of policy making and the administration of policy. He feels that we have this need for change for this new public administration. And on page 140 in the third paragraph, he asks some very good questions about how we need to train these new public administrators and what that's going to look like going forward. He calls for a move away from the strict business functionality of management and more towards a focus on the social purpose of management and the administration of policy. The best modern idea or best modern application I can think of are those of us in this class who are mid-level managers. I feel like we have a really good handle on efficiency, but we are here to expand our knowledge and become better administrators. We're looking towards becoming better stewards of public resources and really dig into what our social responsibilities of the decisions that we make. The second theorist this week, Douglas Macgregor, in his Human Side of Enterprise, really goes into two separate management theories. One is the theory X and the other is the theory Y. The theory X is more of a controlled and demanding order-giving type management and says that the workforce is lazy. And then the theory Y says that no, your workforce is actually very motivated and you need to encourage this. And he really builds on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that theory X concentrating on those lower needs, the theory Y moving up to those higher needs. The paragraph that struck me most in this is on page 162, the first paragraph, in which Macgregor describes how the theory Y manager needs to conduct business. He says that we need to encourage growth, provide opportunity, remove obstacles, and really reach those higher needs of self-esteem for our employees. My particular modern day example is kind of one of a failure. In my agency, we concentrate on public defense, so our accounting department is very limited. So I often lose my accounting techs because I see that they are motivated and want to move up and have this upward mobility in their positions. And so often, instead of being able to supply that within my agency, the best bet I have is to encourage them and to help them grow and move on to other state agencies. Finally, moving on to Charles Lindblom and his Science of Muddling Through. This article really speaks to me of the constraints of decision making. He has kind of two types of decision making, the root and the branch. The root works better for smaller or governments or tighter decisions where you can find all inputs and all outputs, and come to the greatest outcome possible for the goal being reached. Whereas the branch is kind of this muddling through, this picking up of different inputs and outputs or limited inputs and outputs and suggesting those and going around and possibly revisiting them again. And I really think that he is going into how we make policy. And my example is fiscal note, the fiscal note part of policymaking. If any of you have been involved in fiscal notes, you kind of understand this process. But what happens is a legislator brings a bill to light and it is distributed to our budget office. The budget office then reviews the bill, sends it out to all agencies that may be affected by the change, and then the agencies pick certain inputs and outputs that affect their agency and that they can measure, submits that back to the government or the budget office. They compile all this, send it to the legislature, and then they vote on the bill. If the bill passes, we have to really study what happened and whether our inputs or outputs were positive or negative, how they turned out. We report that back in a year or two, and then sometimes we will see a change or an amendment to that bill to kind of revisit it again and go through the whole process again. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope that you can relate my examples to the points of interest that I found in each of the articles. Waldo on his responsibility over mechanics, McGregor and his self-fulfillment and control and that type of manager, Lindbohm and his successive comparison in decision-making and timeliness. See you again next week, and I look forward to seeing what the 1960s has in store for us.